We've been practicing graphing lines for weeks. We've been using Desmos graphing calculator, making a table, or using slope-intercept form y equals mx plus b to help us graph a line. Now we're going to use a different method called x and y intercepts. So first, let's talk about what intercepts are. So if you think about that word intercept, it sounds a lot like intersect. And so an x-intercept is going to be where the line intersects the x-axis, and the y-intercept is going to be where the line intersects the y-axis. You're going to identify the x and y-intercepts of these graphs, and we're going to write our answer below in ordered pair form. So first, I'll start with the x-intercept. So I'm looking for where this line intersects my x-axis. And so I can see that's occurring right here. As an ordered pair, those coordinates are 3 to the right and 0 up. For my y-intercept, I'm looking where the line intersects the y-axis, and that would be right here. And the coordinates for that are 0 to the right and 3 up. Just kind of coincidence that they happen to be the same numbers. You're going to pause the video and try it for this line here. Be sure to write your answers in XY format. So where the line crosses the x-axis is at this red highlighted point, and it has the coordinates of -3, 0. And where the line crosses the y-axis is at this blue point, and that has the coordinates of 0, 2. You'll see that an x-intercept always has a y value of 0. That's because if a point is going to be touching the x-axis, it can't be above or below it, and the only number that y could be that would make that happen is 0. Similarly with the y-intercept, if a point is going to be touching the y-axis, it can't be left or right at all, which means the first number needs to be 0. And so what's interesting here is that for x and y intercepts, the opposite coordinate is 0. So for the x-intercept, the y-coordinate is 0, and for the y-intercept, the x-coordinate is 0. That's going to help us later when we try to find intercepts from an equation. So this time we're going to put a circle around the point that has an x-coordinate of 0, and a square around the point that has a y-coordinate of 0. So when something has an x-coordinate of 0, that means that my first move would not be to go right or left at all. I would only go up or down. So the point on this line that has an x-coordinate of 0 would be this one right here on my y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and put a circle around that point. Then it says to put a square around the point that has a y-coordinate of 0. If my y-coordinate of 0 is 0, that means my second number is 0, which means I'm only going to go left or right on my graph. That would be this point right here. So I'll go ahead and put a square around that point. You're going to pause the video and try example 4. Put a circle around this place where there would be an x-coordinate or an x-coordinate of 0 and a square around the point that has a y-coordinate of 0. Now if you look at this line, there's no dots like there were on this one, but remember that you're allowed to put them there. Pause the video, press play when you're ready to check your answer. So the two dots that I'm looking for are right here and right here, so I went and put actual points on them just so I could see that they're points. There's technically points all along this line, but none of them have an x or a y coordinate of 0. The one that has an x coordinate of 0 would be this point right here on the y-axis, and the point that has a y coordinate of 0 would be this point right here on the x-axis. So now we're going to practice graphing the lines if we know the intercepts. So if the x-intercept is 2, 0, which maybe some people would just say 2, that just means to go over 2 on the x-axis and up 0, so that point's going to be touching the x-axis. To graph the y-intercept of 0, -3, I'm going to go over 0 and down 3. And so it's possible that sometimes people might just say that the x-intercept is 2. I might write it like this. And that the y-intercept is -3. And the reason they would do that is because once the intercept word gets introduced, you're allowed to assume that the opposite coordinate is 0. I personally like writing it in ordered pair format because it helps me really see that these two numbers don't go together. They're completely separate. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my ruler or something straight, and I'm going to do my best to graph a straight line. And I didn't have a ruler and explain everything, but if I did, I would use that, and I'm going to graph a straight line through those points. Pause the video, graph the line represented by these 2 points right here. Press play when you're ready to check your answers. So the point -5, 0 on the graph is going to be over to the left 5 and up 0. and the point 0, 4 is going to be over to the left or right 0 and up 4. When I graph and connect these 2 points, I make sure I connect with a nice full line. Some people just stop between like the red and the blue points as if it were a line segment. These 2 points are lying on a line that can go on forever in both directions as far as we know. So we want to show that. We don't want it, these just happen to be 2 points on the line, but we want to show that the line is made up of infinite points. The last thing that we're going to do in this section is we're going to use the equation to find the intercepts and then graph just like we did. We want to remember some pretty important things though about x and y intercepts. So for our x-intercept, we want to remember that the y-coordinate is 0, and for the y-intercept, we want to remember that the x-coordinate is 0. This is going to help us find our x and y-intercepts. So on my equation, 3x plus 2y equals 12, I'm going to start by finding my x-intercept. So I'll leave it a little space to do some work. But what I told myself over here is that when I'm finding an x-intercept, I know that the y-coordinate is 0. So that means that in this equation, I could substitute a 0 in the place of y. And so what that would make this equation is 3x plus 2 times 0 equals 12. Now I would do this math. My goal is to get x by itself. And I'm going to simplify first. So 2 times 0 is 0. So that would get me 3x plus 0 equals 12. But then anything plus 0 is itself. So 3x equals 12. And then to get x by itself, I would divide both sides by 3, which means that x would equal 4. And so that was my work for my x-intercept. So I'm going to put that information in this ordered pair. And so remember, ordered pairs go x comma y. I just found that the x value is 4. And the y value, the number that is in the place of y that caused that to happen, was 0. So this is going to be the ordered pair 4 comma 0. So then I can come down to my graph to graph it, and I can go 4 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 0, and I can put that point. Now I can go through the whole process again, but this time I'm going to do it for my y-intercept. And so the thing that I said was important about my y-intercept is that x is 0. So this time I'm going to replace x with 0. And I'll leave a little space to do my y-intercept work. So I'm going to rewrite this equation, but with 0 in the place of x. So that's going to be 3 times 0 plus 2 times y equals 12. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 2 times y equals 12. Anything plus 0 is itself, so 0 plus 2y is just 2y. And then to get y by itself, we would divide both sides by 2, getting a y value of 6. So this is my work for my y-intercept. So in this ordered pair, I just found that y, which is my second coordinate, is 6. And the number that was in the place of x that caused that to happen was 0. So the y-intercept is going to be 0 comma 6. It's important to remember that when you're dealing with intercepts that one of your two numbers is always 0. And it's the opposite of whatever you're finding. So if it's the x-intercept, the y number is 0. And if it's the y-intercept, the x-coordinate is 0. But these two numbers are not paired together. They're paired with 0. So now to graph this point, 0 comma 6, I would go over 0 and up 6 on my y-axis. And now I'm ready to connect my 2 points. And again, I'm going to connect with a nice full line. Hopefully I've got a ruler. And this line is going to go all the way through. I'm not going to stop at those points. I'm going to put arrows on both ends to show that this line can go on forever in both directions. You're going to try example 8. Follow along and use example 7 as your model to find both an x and a y-intercept. Remember to start by replacing 0 in a specific part in the equation depending on which intercept you're finding. Pause the video, press play when you're ready to check your answer. So to find my x-intercept in this equation, I knew to change y to 0. So 3x plus 6 times 0 equals 24. 6 times 0 is 0. 3x plus 0 is 3x. And then to get x by itself, I divided both sides by 3 to get an x value of 8. And the y value that caused that to happen was 0. To graph that, I went over 8 on the x-axis. To find my y-intercept, I changed x to 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 6y is 6y, and then to get y by itself, I divided both sides by 6 to get y equals 4. My y value is 4, and the x value that caused that to happen was 0, and to graph that point, I went up 4 on the y-axis. Then using a ruler or something straight, you're going to connect these 2 points to create a nice full line.